Hey guys, Board now back with you for another brand new movie review, and you can probably hear my snoring dog in the background. I hope it doesn't affect the audio too much. Maybe it will add to the mood, to the atmosphere. But on this video I'm going to be talking about the recent Japanese anime which is called Withering With You. So a recent film release, and it's the latest film from, if I can pronounce his name correctly, Makoto Shinkai. I'll go with that. Sounds good to me. He was the director of Your Name, which came out about 3 or 4 years ago now. Definitely one of the films of that year, and I'd probably say for my money one of the best films of the last 10 years. It was absolutely mind-blowing. It was this really fresh take on the teen coming-of-age drama, but done with this really ambitious body swap narrative going on. So very exciting film, very stunning visually, great characters, but really ambitious in what it was doing, and just had this sense of magic and adventure. Ticked all the boxes. It was absolutely brilliant. I've watched it a couple of times, and yeah, really I loved it just as much second time. So if you've not seen Your Name, I highly recommend it, and I'm trepidatious about the forthcoming American remake, because why would you really? It's a perfect film already, and it can't really be improved on. I mean, who knows, if you get the right people involved. Never say never, but I'm pretty cynical considering the history of American remakes of already great foreign movies. It's one thing if you're talking about a movie which isn't that great to start off with, there's problems, maybe you can improve upon it, or maybe you can certainly do something different and interesting. But I remain to be proven wrong. We'll see what happens with the American remake of Your Name, but as I said, the Japanese original is brilliant. It's pretty damn close to a masterpiece. So this is the director's new film, which I saw today at my local picture house. As I said, Withering With You. It's based on a manga graphic novel, and again it's very sort of well, it is a teenage centric sort of drama, but it does have those really ambitious sort of fantasy science fiction type elements to it as well. So the clue is very much in the title. You have this Japanese student. Most of the film is set in Tokyo, so you have the character of, let's see, Hadako Mirishima, and now there's two different versions of this film. There's obviously the Japanese original with subtitles, and the dubbed English version. Now I was planning on seeing the Japanese subtitled version, but unfortunately I couldn't make it to the screening last night, so I had to sort of make do with the dubbed version today, which I don't have a problem with, because a lot of times with these dubbed versions of these animations, I think the standard is very good and they get a good cast, but generally, yeah, I'd prefer to watch the subtitle, but it wasn't possible this time, sadly. So I'm just mentioning this because I'll sort of mention both the Japanese and the English-speaking voice cast. So the lead character, Hadako Mirishima, in the Japanese version, he is voiced by Ketacaron Diego, or well, that sounds more Argentinian, but anyway, Diego, something along those lines. In the English-speaking dub version, he is voiced by Brandon Igmar. So there you have it. And he, as I said, is a Japanese student who is really down on his luck. He's sort of struggling to keep on top of things. He's struggling to really have enough money to have a sustainable living, or struggling with just keeping himself together, eating enough food. Really does show you how difficult student life can be at times, particularly if you come from a poorer sort of background. And at the start of the film, I think he's meant to be in like his last year of university in Tokyo, because it later mentions that he sort of was expected to graduate that year. So much of the early part of the film is him like scrapping around trying to get any job he can to make a living. And he eventually gets employed by this sort of, well, what he thinks at a time is a couple, but he later finds out they're actually blood related. But anyway, this guy takes him in and offers him like this job working for like this peculiar like magazine, and it's the sort of magazine that searches out like supernatural type stories. So that's kind of his job, is like writing those stories or reporting on them, finding them, whatever the case may be. And he stays in like this apartment as part of the job, so he starts bonding with like the with these two characters basically, and there's a relationship that slowly develops, because I think early in the film it's sort of presented as the guy is kind of just an employer to him, but it's later revealed and he took him in because he did feel sorry for him, and he wanted to give him a chance basically. So there is a bit more to the relationship than that. And it shows you life on the streets in Tokyo, and like prostitution and stuff, and just this main character being treated quite sort of badly. But then he comes across this girl. So the other lead of the film, Hiro Amono, and she is voiced by Naro Mari, or Mari, Mari, one of the two. But in the English dub version, she is voiced by Ashley Bodashare. I'll go with that. I've seen the name before. I actually can't think what I've seen her in, but I'm pretty sure I've seen her in something. But she does the English voice, and she's very much in the same boat, where she's just doing any sort of low paying job just to make a living. So she's working in like McDonald's or some sort of fast food restaurant when he meets her, and she can see then he's struggling, so she helps him out by giving him like a burger one day, and she gives him it for free and says, don't tell management, but just take it, because she can see that he's been hanging around for days and that he's been living off like things like noodles or something like that. So that's when they first meet, and then later on as the film progresses, he sees her being used as like a prostitute, and he comes to her rescue. He saves her, which at first she's a bit mad about, because obviously that's a way of making a living, but she sort of calms down. But it's this really dramatic scene when he just grabs her and they run, and then there's like a standoff, where he's actually got a gun. And so some of this is quite dark, even though it's quite an accessible mainstream film. It does have these really quite shocking, darker moments too, like this scene with the gun. But what it's building towards is what the title hints at, is that this girl appears at least to have these magical powers where she can control the weather. So, like, if someone requests, can you make it sunny now, because a lot of the film it's like raining, then she can supposedly do this. And they obviously form this bond, and they decide, let's do it. Let's turn this into a business opportunity. And so they start off like an online thing, and they actually start making some money off it. And then she becomes like this minor celebrity. And at the same time, he's got, starts developing strong feelings for her. And I think she does for him, although the film, certainly it's a close friendship at least, but the film never quite makes it clear whether there's any romance the other way. And then there's a development later on which maybe puts that a bit up in the air, but that's basically the setup. So it does get into this fantastical premise, and then it looks at the complications to do with that, and at one point it calls into question if the legend around her is really true, and if it is, what are the consequences. So really fascinating idea. And you've probably already guessed some of the way I've been talking, but I really liked this too. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Again, has many of the qualities of Your Name. I think I prefer that film. I think this one isn't quite up to the standard, and there's a couple of like small problems I think with this film, which weren't really there with Your Name, and I'll get into those. But generally, this was excellent. I really like the idea. I thought the drama is very good. It visually, again, it's absolutely stunning and unique, and good characters you can really invest in. And I think, I would have to like re-watch Your Name, but I think this is probably a bit more on the lighter side, as in I think it focuses more on the romance in this, because even though the characters never definitively get together, I think it's still very romantic the way their relationship blossoms and stuff, and it's a very likable film. It's very positive, and I think ultimately you feel things are going to work out for the characters, although there are darker moments, as I said, and they are well handled. I think at the same time, I think you're always in kind of a good place with it, where you think, yeah, it's probably going to work out for the best. And hey, nothing wrong with that. I think when a mainstream film is done very well like this is, then that's not a problem, as long as you're given a convincing story along the way, which I think you are for the most part with this. But firstly, I think it does a good job of setting up the characters and their world. It's really, I think the time it takes to get to know them in that early part of the film is really effective, because it paints a vivid picture of student life in a big city as well, just the energy and atmosphere of a big city. I really love the bleached out sort of colour palette and naturalistic colours, and just some great direction. just this sweeping landscape of like a big modern like metropolitan city. Just some really great techniques like whip pans and stuff. It's all really really effective, really like eye popping, striking colours. And I think a bit like Your Name, it has this effect of being quite sort of surreal and ambitious, but also it has a very naturalistic look as well. I think you feel, I think when it needs to be, it's fantastical and really goes for it, but a lot of the drama is grounded in reality, although it is heightened. I mean, there's lovely little touches like hit, like the main character's boss has a cat, and some of his reactions are just like heightened for like just for the sake of it. Well, just because, just yeah, to embrace like the sense of adventure, imagination. But that's really charming. There's some funny moments with the cats and the way the characters like respond to that stuff. So it's really really good stuff. So you buy into the drama. The characters are very likable, and it does paint, I think, a realistic portrait of student life in a big city. As I said, it's brilliantly designed. I can't really fault the look of the film and the direction at all. And I think, as I said, it slowly weaves in like the darker moments as it moves along. It's sort of an odd mixed bag of a film at times, because there are moments where it turns into a bit of an action movie. There's sort of a bit of a cop type detective drama going on, because you have along the way you have like, and now I'm getting to spoilers, but you get like detectives investigating. I mean, first of all, the boy, because of the incident with the gun, where he literally pulls a gun on this guy, the one who's like trying to get the lead girl into prostitution. And that's a really shocking moment. That's one of the most powerful moments in the film, because I think this is one of the things I really like about the direction, is then it uses these clever like freeze frame or slow motion type techniques. So it really feels like it's that sense of stuff happening out of the blue, stuff feeling very raw and surreal, where it's almost like time slows down and freezes, a bit like it would feel like if this stuff was happening. It really gives it's a sense of purpose, and I think this is what this director did with Your Name and now this film. Is, I think, although they're both fairly mainstream films, I think he does break up like the narrative. He does try little techniques that are quite different. So like the slow motion stuff in this scene where where the guy has him pinned on the ground and he shoots at him, and the way it's shot is at first you're not really sure if he's hit him or not, and the guy sort of pauses, but we sort of see that the bullet went past him, and I think he's just paused because he's so shocked, because initially when he pulls the gun out he's like laughing, because he doesn't take him seriously and doesn't think he'll use it on him. And then it just shocks him, the fact that he actually shot it and it misses him by very little. But it's a great scene. It's a really powerful scene. But so the lead character, as I said, Hideko, he starts getting investigated because of that. But then it's revealed that the girl as well, it gets her into trouble because she lives with her brother, and there's no parents in the picture. So she's been looking after him, and obviously they're both young, and she's not like his mother or mother, so that obviously comes under scrutiny, and it gets across like the struggle really of like the working classes in this sort of city, especially if you don't have a lot of people around you to look out for you. So it gets that across very well. I think, although it's a very romantic film, a very fantastical film, I think it does like the basic depiction of poverty and everyday life. I think it does feel very authentic. I think it really gets like the cramped sort of spaces of these like apartment blocks, and just the struggle and the limited options really for young people sometimes. So that catches up with them. So we then sort of get into like this narrative where the two lead characters are then on the run with the boy, with her young brother, and there's certain revelations that come out later on. One of them is that she actually lies about her age because he obviously likes her, and at the beginning, well, near the beginning, when they've not known each other very long, she says to him that she's actually about to turn 18, and he's 15 basically. So at the time he feels like, or has no reason to disbelieve her, but it's actually revealed later on that she's actually younger than him, which is, for him, is just a shock because he's taken aback by it when it's revealed to him by the detective, and that she has this whole other identity. But in any case, it's one of these sort of dramatic sort of things. But they go on the run, and you do get some really good adventurous type things like this. And in general, I love the stuff with them on the run, them as like a group of three, that they're really good characters that play off each other very well. And you also get some of the most personal stuff between the two main characters in these scenes. But at the same time, they start peeling away at her powers and her sort of legend and the complications. I think one of the weaker bits of the film, if I'm getting into a couple of small complaints, I think there's a couple of scenes where there's sort of like exposition type dumps, and one of them comes about halfway through, where you have like this older man who is basically very spiritual and supposedly has a lot of power and knowledge, and you have I'm pretty sure it's Hadeko's employees, the man and the woman. They go to this guy and they're asking him about this power because they've been using the girl for their whole thing with the magazine, and he sort of suggests then it could be a bit of a myth, or he brings into question this idea of the weather and how we view it, sort of thing. The idea that there is a set pattern to the weather, the fact that we expect it to be a certain way within the season. And he just makes the point that it's very unpredictable. So even if you expect it to be a certain way, it doesn't mean it. it will be, and I think that brings into question her powers, because it's very hard to prove that the weather is changing because of her powers, even though I think we sort of know it is, because that's kind of the setup of the film. But in any case, he also says that there is a sacrifice involved with her powers, that eventually she will be sacrificed for using her powers if she decides to use them. So that gets brought up, and that becomes a big thing later on in the film. But that scene, although I quite enjoyed it, I think that's a bit of an exposition dump where they're just going through like the basics of the law, and it feels a bit overly wordy, but I did enjoy it as well. There was some good comedy in that scene with the old guy and the boy he's with, but you know, that's a slightly weaker scene, even though I understand why it's there. But I really enjoyed the stuff, as I said, with them on the run, and you get the two, as I said, the two leads getting closer together. I think the other weakness is probably just the end of the film. I think overall the writing isn't as good as Your Name. I think it's the sort of film where a lot of it you can get away with if the writing isn't great. Still, I think, you know, it's so much about the imagination and the imagery. And the characters are good, like I said. They're well written characters. A lot of heart. The voice cast do a good job. But I think just in the later part of the film, as it tries to tie itself up, it just gets a bit too muddled. A little bit, and I just feel the ending felt a bit redundant. Because, I mean, obviously, spoiler, it does have a happy ending. But at the same time, no problem with that. It's kind of that sort of film, but I just felt it a bit random the way it ended. It's hard to explain, but it's sort of kind of, there's this prolonged period where they're apart, and he eventually have to face his crimes. So he like, it sort of breaks for a year, and he does have like, it's either a jail sentence or some sort of juvie, and he sort of gets it suspended, but he's put on probation. And then she mysteriously goes missing, and they think, well, she's been cursed and she's maybe gone forever. But it just, I don't know, I think the way it ends just felt a bit rushed, or it just felt like, well, they've kind of convinced us that maybe they won't see each other again, and then randomly they just see each other again, and that's the end of the film. So I think that felt a little bit weak, but it's not really a huge problem. I think it's fine because you're invested in them, and maybe I just thought maybe like the back half of the film there were some messy like plot moments, but generally I absolutely love this film. It sort of ticks all the boxes. I think it's a bit more straightforward than Your Name. I think it's a bit more of a straight field sort of mainstream romance, and that's not a complaint. It works really well as that. I really like this film, and it's another beautiful film. Great teenage characters, great drama again, and just, yeah, fantastical. So very small complaints. It didn't really ruin my enjoyment of the film at all, and I think on the second watch I might not even have those problems. It's still a very, very good film. I'm just not sure it's as good as Your Name. So there you have it. That's Weather and Review, my review of it. A recent sort of smaller art house release, if you like, although it will have mainstream appeal, and it's done really impressive business in Japan, and solid business, I think, over here for a smaller release. I think in Japan it's sort of done. I think it's like close to 1 billion or something, or something like that. It was around about that, and that's really impressive. But no, very good, and I will rate it to end the video. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I'm not quite sure it's quite as good as Your Name. As I said, I think that is more like a 9 out of 10, maybe even the full 10, at least a 9. And I mean, I might feel similar about this on the second viewing, but my couple of complaints, they are just small complaints. It didn't really ruin my enjoyment of the film. I still loved it a lot. And it's a very, very strong 8 out of 10, I think. And it may grow on the second viewing. So there you have it. That's Weathering Review. And a recent film release. If you've seen it, then please comment below in the description. Like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll be back with another new movie review soon. The next film I'm reviewing on this channel should be the much talked about, much anticipated Harley Quinn movie Birds of Prey, based on the DC comic, of course, starring Margot Robbie, Ewan McGregor and many more. So I'll be seeing that this week, or that's the plan anyway, and I should have a review up soon. So thank you very much for listening to this, and I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.